Good evening. This is Pops. Actually, what time is it? Oh, 22:57. Why am I up? Well, let's just say when I'm suffering from constipation, the first thing I think of, believe it or not, is management. And being retired, I'm hoping I can speak out for the workers that are down on the floor and out in the field. And behind the parts counters to some extent. I just got through having a fair presentation of how to retain or how to bring in a new worker so that they want to stay. Young one in particular, but also the same works for the older guys that come into the shop. There's too many times that I've seen older guys hired, tossed out into the shop because, well, they don't know what they're doing by now. They don't know your company. They don't have a clue who they're supposed to talk to. What's the contact phone number? What is it on the computer? Is there an email they can go to? How do they get a hold of HR? They don't know any of that. Well, we told them, but yeah, you told them a week or two before. They're still going to ask the same question. And you need to get over the fact that maybe you told them once, maybe even twice, which is never. But it gets, oh, I told you twice. Well, all right, we'll accept it because we don't have any other way to prove it. Doesn't matter. If they ask you 15 times how to get hold of HR parts or run through the system, too bad for you. Now, you want to bring people in and retain them. This works both for the young and for the old alike, just to get them in the door and to get them working and to start removing the first attitude problems that you're going to complain about in management. Number one, you've already walked them through the new hire, and you think, well, I've showed them the shop, that's all done. They show up the first day. Oh, no. Don't be a fool and sit there in your chair. Number one, the first thing is you bring them in and you already had orientation planned. That's correct. When they walk in the shop, hopefully you've told them where to report to. Most places don't. They just guess at it. They come walking through the front door because that's where they came before. So, if you've done your work before, they know where to come in, they know how to come in, and they know which door to go to and which office and which person to report to when they get there. Or people to report to. I'm not into persons. So if you've done your part when you hired them and brought them back in and notified them, then you've given them the information. Sure, you gave them the employee's handbook, doesn't mean squat. They start getting to be this thick. Anything over 3 or 4 or 5 pages, you need your head examined. That's got to change. So you've already given the information to walk through the door. They're coming into your office, let's say, to begin with. Maybe it's something else, but let's start with walking into the manager's office, saying, hello, so-and-so here reporting for my first day. Hey, good to see you. Let me get oriented here, and then we'll start with you, okay? This first thing I need you to do is, here's some papers here I need you to fill out for hiring. Or, if you aren't going to be doing that, which is a fool's errand not to, but then explain to them where HR is, pull one of the guys from the shop to take them up to HR. Even if it's just, well, go through that door up there and second door. No. Have somebody walk them up there and orient them. Tell them, say, hi, this is a junior, a new hire. He needs to go through the morning paperwork. Well, I'll be pulling it. Yeah, that's right. If you're not going to do it yourself, you're pulling somebody off the job, going to HR, or sitting them down there to do the paperwork, either in your office or in a break room, whatever. Get it done. No questions asked, just done. Well, we've got a lot of training they need. That's right, you do. If I follow Anderson's ridiculous training, first thing they did was have an entire day devoted to nothing else but films on this injury, that injury, something else, telling the employee exactly how to get hurt. When they're too young, that's kind of dumb. The orientation they need when they walk into a shop is a video that the company makes. How do they handle the overhead lift, the yard lift, the forklift interior? Who operates the forklifters? Do you need to be permitted there in the shop or not? Because some places they won't let you run it until they're sure of it. I had that at Anderson and I started laughing. I said, what are you laughing about? I said, you're kidding, right? The only thing I need to know is where the controls are and what's forward reverse. I worked on forklifts. Well, this one was a funky one. He says, yeah, but you don't know this one. Okay, show me. He did, and it was funny as heck. Laughed my face off. And he said, you know how to handle it from here? Yeah, okay. They said something about skid steers, and he said, can you handle that? I said, yeah, I think so. I went out, dropped the bucket, kicked the levers, turned it up on his tail, spun it around the other way, laid it back down, and went down to pick up the other implement. Of course I got chewed out for that, and I just laughed the whole time. And the other guy who was busting his chops said, I think he knows how to operate, Brad. So those are the things you need to find out. He comes through the door, already knows where the service manager's office is to report to, or parts manager's office to report to. Someone takes him to HR. Don't let him wander through the place like a fool. Okay? Paperwork and everything's done and established. What's the next one? Next thing, obviously, you're going to talk about is uniforms and their benefits all in one shot. Okay? You've already talked with them, hopefully, before this all began, that they're going to need steel toe shoes, possibly, but the company will be paying. Right? They already know if they have a tool allowance or not. They already know what their wages are. They already know what vacation they have, and it's printed out for them on a sheet of paper. So when they go to HR, they're getting a second sheet of paper to remind them of that. So that there's no arguments later, it's not a bad time to say, well, for the litigious company, put your initials on the paper. So they have it on file and you have a copy. All right, now what do? Safety training. Take them out, like I was saying. They run them through the basic safety training that, don't do this, don't do that, wear your safety glasses, yada, 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 the OSHA stuff. Take them out to operate the equipment. Well, what do you mean? Well, the overhead hoist. Maybe a track press that they might be using, and find out if they know anything about it or have ever used one. Take them through step by step. And maybe that's you, the service manager, service writer, which most likely isn't going to be, but possible. But pull somebody off in the shop to take them around. Show them the stuff and where it is. Find out if they know how to use it. Ask all the questions. Pressure washer, all of that. Walk them around the yard. Show them where, if they're the new guy and what they're doing is running rentals or yard repairs for the company equipment in rental, well, that's a good place to start a new employee, old or young. Show them where the wash rack is. Show them what your procedures in the shop are. That's the beginning of it. And while they've gone through all of that, then they've come in the door, they got the paperwork done, their uniforms on the way, their shoes, other elements, safety done, first aid, etc., who to report to, etc. You showed them how to run the computer and clock themselves in. At the end of the week or 2 weeks, you're going to show them on their paycheck how you did pay them for the first hour or two they were there, because they weren't on the clock yet. Most companies won't put you on until you actually show up, and then they'll put you on the payroll. They shouldn't wait that long, but they often do. And at the end of the week, you'll show them, or 2 weeks, that you are on the payroll, etc., etc. They know how to operate the equipment. They know where the tooling is in the shop. They know how the parts procedure when you're done with the orientation. And they know how to operate the equipment within the shop and out in the yard. And they've been trained on it. Last but not least, as I've said before, somebody in the shop is going to be pulled off of their job, or they're going to be scheduled out of the general jobs to take this guy through in one of two things. If it's somebody that should be experienced and has bragged about their experience, then this person is watching them and working them through the machines, because quite often, unless they've gone from Caterpillar to Caterpillar or from Komatsu to Komatsu, they've gone to another brand or another type of equipment altogether. And you need to be there with them to show them the basic ropes for it. They say, oh, I can handle this. Yep, we know that. But if something comes up, you need parts or whatever, or how to go through the system, or we can show you how to write up your parts list, or to write up your work orders and such. And we'll run you through the whole process, start to finish. No, that should all be done. And let me tell you, Monroe Tractor, for all their wonderful thinking of themselves, was one of the worst for new employee hires coming into the shop, orienting them. Worst. Horrible. And that's giving them credit. down here in Kirkwood, horrendous. There's more training to be a Walmart greeter than what they did. So, well, you've been around a while. You know it all. I said, no, I can go out there and fix the machine. How do I put it in the computer? How do I clock in the morning? And I went through the whole list right on down. Said, got my W-2 to sign? Yeah, we went through all of that crap. So, new hire knows what office before he even shows up the first day. If you're fortunate and you're intelligent enough, you've already had his uniforms on the way. But most often you don't. That one I can see both ways. For the first few weeks or a month, you're going to wait in the uniforms, because if it doesn't work out, you have to let him go. You're holding the bill. It's a few $100. So let's say when he comes in, you've already got the sizes and everything else. And the next day that you've called in. But that first day they come in, they're in your office. You tell them about the uniforms, the paperwork that has to be done. Some of it takes them through the orientation process and the safety training, etc. When they're done with that, then they go through the shop building and maintenance and material and tools and parts procedures. So that'll be another 2, in a sense, that they've gone through. And you're going to have to do it again. And for the next day or 2, there's going to be someone that's with them, spotting, in a sense, running them through the procedures and through the programs and processes on their machines, unless you have the 2 of them properly working side by side. Someone talking to them. Not necessarily somebody gregarious, but don't send them with a shop grump either. But sometimes the shop grump is better. All the complaints are all out, and he's not listening to them later, all in one day. And then you'll have an idea how patient your new tool man is. Tool monkey. Yeah. So the end of the first day, you're going to pull them in for orientation again. Is there anything we missed? Anything else that you remember as a manager to walk them through the end of the first day alone? And the first day may not even be with wrenches. And fortunately, if you're smart, you've stuck them in there for safety training and have checked on them continuously. You and the service writer, or you and somebody in the shop foreman. Somebody's in there every half hour to an hour checking on what's going on to be sure everything goes through properly. And they also know 2 different people that they can contact. If they go out and the service manager's on the phone, they're not wasting time. They have the shop foreman or etc. training guy that they can go to. So you go through your training now, in-house training, how can you say it? In class training, so to speak. Then you take them into shop orientation, shop equipment orientation, shop tooling orientation, and shop motorized vehicle, where the keys are, where everything is. And then maybe at the end of maybe by noon the second day, when you get through all this, maybe you'll let it hang and find something else for him to do before that. And in our case, with Kubota and some others, they actually have shop training videos to send people through that may be helpful. So you'll have 2 days of nothing but training. And if you've already told them about that, it won't be a problem. But if you waited until they got there, now you've created an attitude problem already. They want to get out there and work. Well, just say, yeah, litigious nature, we got to be careful here. Run them through it, and we want you to be sure. Day 1 is all the legal stuff to be sure everything is safe and good and right and just. And your uniforms are coming, and your shoes and safety glasses and ear protection and helmet, hard hat, whatever you need, or vest, all of that is taken care of day 1. Then day 2 is now the hands-on orientation in the shop, working through that and going around introducing to people within the building the rest of the way. And then maybe at the end of day 2 in the afternoon, and most likely day 3, now they'll start on work with somebody either working with them or working beside them. What have you told them? You say some people are going to complain, they're going to quit and walk right away. Possibly. This is 2 things. One of them is, are they going to follow the procedures that nobody can change? Are they willing to go through the procedures they may or may not even need for basic safety training and shop orientation? And you get a lot of questions out of the way there. And the 3rd day, by this time already, you give them a chance for their tools to be set up, figure out what they need to bring in. So they've had 2 full days to get in and themselves oriented with their tools and their clothing and shoes and the whole 9 yards, that they can start on a project that you've already had set aside that might be as simple as reseal that little bitty cylinder for that Yanmar tractor, Kubota, whatever, loader. Something easy that they should be able to say, oh, cool. And they already know that whether they can use a hydraulic bench, you've already told them, or they're finding out now because of that. They have somebody working with them. This is how we usually do that. It makes life much easier. So for the first week even, each procedure that they go through, someone is there not spying, someone is there leading and walking them through it. And if they're intelligent enough, they'll ask plenty of questions either then or shortly after. And you'll find out what they have for tooling as well. I mention that because I know somebody that walked in with probably $30,000 worth of tools, and they were all aircraft tools, and the largest thing he had was a crescent wrench over 1 inch for Komatsu work. And the idiot service manager, product support, never, so I got two boxes of tools, but the idiot never asked what kind. So when I came in, he jackassed me all over. I said, you had me put all my tools in that truck so you could see what I had. Why didn't you do something we considered simple on the farm? He says, now wait a minute. I said, no, you wait a minute. I said, I just spent an entire day putting tools in the truck. You're telling me to take them back out because I'm going in the other truck. Why didn't you ask? They're all right there that I have here. He says, what do you mean that you have here? I said, this is the basic stuff that I could bring in now. I got a pile more at home. What? Told you I have continuously from 3/16 of an inch all the way up to 2 inch. Wrenches and sockets. Everybody says that. Then the one guy behind him who was busting his chops the whole time said, yeah, but you didn't ask the last guy, and this guy's already told you twice. Well, I had to see it. Why? You didn't have to see it for the last guy. And we jackassed around just on tools for a day or two. Put them all in the truck and then take them all the way back out of the truck and reorient everything in for a different truck. So at the end of the first week, I literally did nearly nothing. It was sad. All because of poor management procedures or non-existent management procedures. And the fact of the matter is, he says, well, I'll help you get through this, but we need to work on this tamp and get it running. I said, oh, Honda on it? Yeah, why? Okay, no problem. Well, no, wait a minute. I said, it's no problem. Well, nobody else could figure it out. Yeah, okay. I said, I have to learn your Komatsu. I don't have to learn your Honda. A half hour to an hour later, I had 2 tamps running. I said, you ever heard of this stuff called fuel stabilizer? Well, that's how our first week started. Because the other thing with this orientation that they learn is you're the new hire that comes in, and I'm going to come from the other side. They've taken the time to run me through all this orientation to be sure I need to know what I do know, or at least know enough that I can ask the question, is such and such up here, so that I can orient myself. And then I find out who in the shop knows what, and I know who in the shop has what attitude, and I know who in the shop that I can talk to or depend on. And I also know what my service manager is like, which in that job with Anderson, my first hire, first day, I ran into a complete idiot. And if I'd have had a chance, I'd have packed up and left. At the end of the first week, I intimated that those were my thoughts. He was not happy. You don't have to be here. I said, somehow I think I do. You can avoid that as well. Don't play the arrogance game. Run them through the orientation, and you're in a man's world. Spar. Even the kids like to spar a little bit, and they expect older guys to poke and prod them and have a little fun with them. Not a lot, but just a little. Teach them. When they learn, you can have fun and joke a little bit back and forth, give and take, push and shove a little, come into procedures and no, hold up there. What do you mean? Yeah, I know what you got to do. Hang on. We're going to make sure you do it properly. And when they start thinking that you're not there just to bust their chops, but you're there to bust their chops and teach them with somebody who's considerably older that's willing to teach them so that they do learn properly without that arrogant boisterousness. It gets to be a lot more fun, and the family idea falls into place. And you can throw the idea team out the window because it's not all for one and one for all. It's more than that. Like I've said before, it's family. We help each other along the way as we need it. And if they don't need it, we don't get in their way. There you go. That's my side for you folks on YouTube. Hopefully that'll help with some. And it's 20 minutes, probably 10 minutes longer than it needed to be. But I'm hoping somebody out there in management does take this into consideration. You've told them where and how to report. They have the handbook already because you've either sent it by email or however else. 2, when they get there, you will give them the handbook of some sort, whether electronically available to them in the shop or by paper. Number 3, you're walking them around to take them to each of the different places, A, where they're going to be doing their immediate training, B, HR, to get that done, C, the locker room and such, so they can put their stuff and stow it. They're going to get their paperwork done while they're in the break room or wherever else that might be, meeting room or such not. When they're done with the paperwork and their orientation and their training and such throughout the video, such digital training through the day, then the next day they start into the shop stuff, going around with shop orientation. Maybe not even working on anything at all throughout the entire day. Learning how the shop operates from front to back, who to report to, who to ask questions to, how to operate the equipment, how to operate the yard equipment, where the yard is, what to do, proper procedures. Do you go around the building in only one direction, or can they go out and go the other way? Are there gates and such in places that service trucks and forklifts go and some don't? Bulldozers, where do they go? Farm tractors and such, what do they run? Do they come in certain doors? All of this. And when it's done, by the time you get to day 3, now you're starting them into orientation of work. When they get done with what they can and cannot do, who they can ask questions of, now they know how to use the service manuals, etc., etc. And if you're a smart company, at this point, you've already understood something that I'm trying to get at as well. You're going to issue them a computer, not necessarily a phone, but the computer that gives them access to all of this stuff, so that they don't have a problem chasing down manuals that somebody else has in their hands. They don't have a problem sitting there in line waiting for the next computer to be used, so that you're not hollering at them wasting time while they're waiting for information that they can't get. When they get used to all of that by the end of the day, of the 3rd day, they've already done maybe a couple of small repairs or assisted in a bunch of repairs, and they know how to get parts. They know where the toilet is, the safety shower, the safety equipment. They know who to report to, and they don't have to get in your hair as a service writer or a service manager or branch manager for that matter. And they're introduced to everybody there, so people at least have an idea who they're looking at that's wandering through the place without a uniform for the first week or 2. There you go. Those are my thoughts on it from 50 years of being out there, and 43 years legitimately out in a basic working world on my own, and at least 50 years the working period, even as a teenager. Those are some of the things that I've seen as pitfalls. Coming up on 24 minutes. You folks have a good night, and remember, everything that happens rises and falls on what they call leadership, but it rises and falls on management responsibility. And when you pass that responsibility on to your workers as well, and they get the idea that they're part of the management family in the shop anyway, that when they come in to report to you, the first thing they don't hear is a complaint about who or what you are, that you're a professional. And more than that, you're the shop uncle, so to speak, to everybody. Doesn't matter what your age is, or the shop cousin. They feel like you're part of a family, that you're not just there to drive them through the job to make them look good for their next step up the ladder. That'll come naturally when you handle your job properly. Then retaining, your retention will be a lot higher. I can't guarantee that, but you'd notice I didn't talk about signing bonuses or any kind of employment bonus at all, did I? No. And never should you ever offer anyone any bonuses of any kind to maintain their position there, to get them in the door, because they're going to keep expecting it later. And then there's those that'll walk in there and decide, I got $5,000 here. I might as well bail and go work at Walmart. Avoid that. And when they come in, don't be afraid. Every so often, somebody ought to have something. A gift certificate or whatever. Somebody does a particularly good job. Send it, mail it home. Yeah. You could put it in the shop as well in other ways. Just say so-and-so reached some milestone. That's kind of nice. But people are different and they work at different rates. They work in different ways. Me, older, I work slower than the younger kids. And I can tell you why. My comeback rate in one place, a guy looked at it and says, your comeback rate is almost non-existent. He says, when I get through with my paperwork and the stuff I have to fumble around with, parts that the shop has to eat, he says, you are the most, overall, even though you're the slowest, you're the most productive worker we have. Because you're conscientious enough to make sure it's not coming back. In a couple of cases, I sold warranty for them. They had no idea how they would do it. Well, it's out of warranty. Give me the phone. So those are the kind of things that work out well when you operate more like a family than you do as corporate or team. Catch you later.